Part 170. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1691. Coincidentally, Lu Zhenhua's comrade in arms was actually Commander Gu Tiangu, Dr. Guo's eldest nephew. Although the battle against South Vietnam was initially successful, many follow-up tasks needed to be handled by the senior generals of the South China Sea Fleet. Soldiers had to be assigned to station them to protect the islands that had not been occupied by the other side. They also had to prevent the other side from continuing to invade and occupy the country's territory. They also had to plan how to recapture other islands that had been occupied by the other side. On the occupied islands, Gu Tian, the chief commander, was almost the top general of the naval base in the port city. Deputy Commander Wu is the deputy commander of the Southeast Military Region and is actually the commander-in-chief of the South China Sea Fleet. The South China Sea Fleet is stationed in the port city, but it is not only a naval base. Feng Qingxiu also knew this from Dr. Guo and sister-in-law Gu. In the 20 days since she came, no one else had told her about the details of the South China Sea Fleet, so she naturally had only a partial understanding of it. The more experience I have, the more I understand the feeling of having comrades all over the world and meeting old friends everywhere. Gu Tian has been busy since the day Feng Qingxiu landed on the island. He finally had time to go back home and learn that the person Lu Zhenhua entrusted him to take care of was actually a student of his uncle Guo Ming. He had a close relationship with his aunt, so he wanted to personally when he came to visit. Unexpectedly there was some trouble at the border, so he asked the guard to deliver many tickets and things. The tickets were collected by his comrades when he was entrusted by Lu Zhenhua. Unaffiliated comrades would never use up the tickets in their lives. Those daily necessities were specially prepared by his wife, not only for Lu Zhenhua's sake, but also for the sake of Dr. Guo. On the face, the guards resolutely obeyed the orders. Feng Qingxiu could not refuse without seeing Gu Tian himself. After she accepted it, the guard left quickly and walked away very quickly. Gu Tian sent 30 kilograms of food stamps, 10 kilograms of meat stamps, 10 kilograms of sugar stamps, 10 kilograms of egg stamps and 5 kilograms of oil stamps, as well as a stack of industrial coupons for easy purchase of industrial products. Aunt Gu prepared some small quantities. Daily necessities such as rice, flour, grains, oils, fruits, vegetables, pots and pans are placed in the kitchen that has been tidied up, making it look like living at home. Feng Qingxiu went to buy meat early, not to eat it herself, but to store it in the space. A paradise for seafood. What kind of meat should you eat? She ate alone and didn't dare to buy too much meat, so she cut 2 pounds of first-grade pork belly, which cost 90 cents a pound, and bought 2 pounds of spare ribs, which cost less than meat and cost more than 2 yuan in total. Since she got the guard, she hasn't bought meat in person for several years. She didn't know that pork was graded and sold. After putting it in the basket and covering it, he turned around to buy fish from Sister Lu and met Ms. Gu, who also came to buy fish. Sister-in-law Gu was also very surprised to see her. Sister Xiaoxiu, are you here to buy vegetables too? We don't charge for the fish here. You can buy whatever you want to eat. You don't need to buy vegetables. You can pick them in my yard. My family has them all year round. I grow vegetables myself, and my aunt's yard is being cleared for spring planting. Thank you, sister-in-law, but I am eating alone. I will go back as soon as I say. I can just buy vegetables for a few cents. Vegetables generally cost 1 or 2 cents a pound, and prices are basically the same across the country. Sister Lu glanced at the two of them. Sister-in-law Gu, do you know Dr. Feng? Sister-in-law Gu laughed. Yes, don't bully students. No, no, Lu Miiza waved her hands repeatedly. Dr. Feng, what kind of fish are you buying? I will choose the best one for you. Feng Qingxiu looked at it carefully and said, give me a base. She can only cook simple fish dishes. Sea bass can be steamed, and hairtail can be braised. She doesn't know how to make rare seafood delicious, and she can only steam crabs. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1692. After buying fish, I found that sister-in-law Lei had a lot of dry goods. The fish maw looked very good, big, and complete. I hurriedly apologized to sister-in-law Gu and went to pick it up, still under the banner of sending it to relatives and friends. Buy, I want to buy everything and store it in the space. It's a pity that there are so many people, so I bought a lot of dry goods and had to send them out. Stewed old hen in fish maw is very tonic, and lesbians should even more replenish it. Sister-in-law Lei's attitude was more enthusiastic than the day before yesterday, and her eyes were brighter. She had seen and heard sister-in-law Gu's attitude and words just now. Who didn't know that sister-in-law Gu's husband was a teacher, and they all knew that Dr. Guo's brother was a great Chinese doctor in the capital. Those who treat leaders usually come into contact with big figures they can't even imagine. Feng Qingxiu smiled, I just bought meat, should I buy another chicken? Chickens are hard to buy, right? They are only available during the holidays. We usually sell chickens and ducks. No tickets are required. It depends on your luck. If you come late, you won't see them. Chickens are more popular and the chicken soup is very nourishing. Ducks have a strong smell and are not easy to sell. Sister-in-law Lei took the money and weighed the goods. The fish maw handed it to her, do you want anything else? Buy some seaweed and kelp to make soup. Put some dried shrimps in the seaweed soup. It tastes really delicious. Feng Qingxiu thought for a moment, then weigh 2 caddies of seaweed and 2 caddies of shrimps for me. After she bought the groceries, sister-in-law Gu planned to leave with her, but she was held back by sister-in-law Lei and sister Lu. Sister-in-law Gu, you guys chat, I'm leaving first. Sister-in-law Gu glanced at sister-in-law Lei and sister Lu helplessly, okay, you can go first. Watching Feng Qingxiu's beautiful figure go away, Lu Miiza finally asked the question she had been holding in her stomach for a long time, Sister-in-law Gu, is Dr. Feng really in his 30s and has 5 children? This is the first time Jianer saw her. My first thought was to introduce her to someone. There are many unmarried young men in every army, and they are also popular. Preserving media and stretching occupies a very important position in the lives of many women. Sister-in-law Gu laughed and said, can people remember their age wrongly and their children wrongly? I said you are so troubled that you actually want to introduce someone to me. Let me tell you, my revolutionary partner is a military commander, the youngest since the founding of the People's Republic of China. As a military commander, he also enjoys battalion-level treatment in the capital military district. This secondment adds luster to his resume, and his promotion and salary increase are just around the corner. When the salesperson nearby heard this, he gasped in unison. Oh my God, sister-in-law Gu, I heard you say that Dr. Feng's husband is higher than your Mr. Gu. Sister-in-law Lei looked in disbelief, and at the same time she was glad that her attitude towards Feng Qingxiu had always been all good. Sister-in-law Gu laughed, the army commander may have done it. He is more capable than my Gu Tian. Lu Miiza was also surprised. No wonder she is not merciless at all when buying dry goods. I secretly thought that she was too prodigal. She would buy dozens of kilograms of dry goods without blinking an eye. That money is enough for several members of my family. Months of living expenses. Sister-in-law Lei nodded. What she bought were high-quality fish maws, which were relatively expensive. Most of them were sold out, and she bought them as often as she was told. Sister-in-law Gu pulled the strap of the backpack, what's so strange about this? It's hard to see seafood where they are. If they finally have the opportunity, they will naturally buy more. I won't tell you any more, I have to go home to pack for my aunt. Bayu dumplings are the best for her, but she hasn't been able to eat them for many years. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1693. Feng Qingxiu made one dish and one soup at noon, steamed sea bass and seaweed soup, and steamed a bowl of rice. As for the meat, ribs, and fish maw, they have already been stored in the space. To this end, she spent the whole morning organizing the space, making an empty space, digging out the empty cardboard boxes, plastic baskets, and other containers and placing them in the open space to contain the supplies of this era. At this moment, she had obviously forgotten that in her previous life, she lived a mediocre life as a commoner. In the era of food insecurity, at her and Lu Jiang's level, the food they ate was specially provided and organic. Contaminated and harmful food would not be eaten at all. Appears in their lives, so there is no need to prepare for a rainy day. The food on the briquette stove was not cooked yet, so Feng Qingxiu continued to sort it out. When she discovered that a large number of cultural relics she had stolen from the Shanghai Cultural Relics Department took up a lot of space, she couldn't help but scratch her head. It was already 1974, and she could return them to their original owners in 1977, so as not to worry about it. Why not 1976? Of course, because that year of 1976 was absolutely turbulent. Even those people who wanted to be rehabilitated had to wait until 1979 or 1980. I really hope that 3 years will pass in a blink of an eye, and life will be on the right track, without having to be careful. A knock on the door sounded at this moment, interrupting Feng Qingxiu's thoughts. She hurriedly put the few things in front of her into the space, opened the door and saw Gu Min carrying a lunch box. The little girl's cheeks were red as she ran, as if there was a little more blood. Min, what's the matter? Gu Min raised the lunch box in his hand. Auntie made dumplings, and Grandma asked me to bring them to you. Feng Qingxiu was stunned, then took it in her hand. Wait a minute, I'll pour the dumplings into the bowl, and you can take the lunch box back. Feng Qingxiu poured the dumplings into her lunch box. Feng Qingxiu washed them easily, used a clean cotton cloth to absorb the moisture, and packed a box of sweet and sour short ribs in the space. When organizing the space, she found that there were many cooked vegetables that could be eaten immediately. It's not that she deliberately gave the food cooked by later generations to the Gu family, but that the ribs she bought today were not cooked at all. A few decades later, the ribs were more expensive than the meat, so the ribs always had a thick layer of meat on them. Unlike the ribs now, the master would like to cut the ribs until they are smooth. Fortunately, the master has a sense of proportion. Still wrapped in a layer of meat. Is the master butcher showing kindness? There is such thick meat on the ribs. After listening to his niece's words, Dr. Guo followed her gaze to look at the ribs in the lunch box, nodded and said, I heard from Xiuying that Qingxiu is popular and generous, and many meat sellers are willing to buy from her. Leave some meat on the bones. I completely forgot that all kinds of meat and bones on the butcher counter are decomposed and displayed. Miss Qingxiu is so generous, that's what the sellers in the non-staple food factory say about her. Sister-in-law Gu gave a few pieces of ribs to her aunt, and then gave a few pieces to her 2 nieces, telling them to eat them while they were hot. It's because we don't thoughtful. I never thought of buying some overseas goods to send to my relatives and friends before. It's great that Qingxiu sends you things every year. Dr. Guo recalled the contents of the correspondence with his eldest brother and niece, and smiled. Qingxiu has a wide circle of friends, and she has many teachers. How can she not be filial? We can't compare. You used to raise 3 sons, and you had to support some. The families of the martyrs have almost made you poor. How can you have the spare money to do this? Sister-in-law Gu thought for a while and then nodded. Although her 3 sons each have jobs, they all have their own small families. She doesn't have a job, so she depends entirely on Gu Tian. The expenses are not small, so she still has to live a careful life. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1694. She still didn't want to eat the mackerel dumplings given to Feng Qingxiu by the Gu family, so she put them into the space and prepared to give them to Lu Zhang to taste. As for the elderly and children at home, forget about it. It's not that she doesn't miss them, but except that Lu's father knows about the existence of space, she can't explain the origin of Bayu dumplings to Cheng Baoqiu, his wife, and their children. It was rare to have free time, and there were no children to disturb me, so I spent the windy and snowy afternoon splashing ink. Dry it, fold it, and send it to Wen Ruyu for comment. I haven't been back to my hometown in these years, so I rely on letters. Naturally, Feng Qingxiu bought another batch of sea goods and letters and sent them back to her hometown. Guan Yu and Zhou Zhou received them, and then distributed them equally among the three uncles, aunt, and Wang Qiao, saying that she was still thinking about them in the South China Sea. The rest were left to themselves and the group of old men and women who had been devolved, as a little bit of their own thoughts. They were naturally very excited when they received it, especially Aunt Su. She wiped her tears behind her back and said to her husband, "We have really benefited from Zioxiu in this life. Even our biological children can't do it." They have 4 children, the only ones who can be contacted so far are twins. Living in the great northern wilderness, the 2 children have already started their own families. After having a child, life is very tight. Occasionally, the old couple has to subsidize some grain and cotton to give them. Especially when they heard that they have a child, the old couple have no shortage of money. Feng Qingxiu asked Feng Qingxiu to get some brown sugar, millet, cloth, and nutritional supplements to send to them. They finally got through it peacefully, but they never saw each other. The other 2 sons, one in the northwest and the other in the southeast, had moved there with their families in the 1950s, so they got in touch during the difficult period. My parents sent them some food they got from Feng Qingxiu. They sent some money back, but gradually lost contact with them, and it was unclear whether they were alive or dead. The southeastern coastal areas are a little better, but the northwest is desolate, and I don't know what the situation is like. Uncle Su patted the back of his wife's hand. "Otherwise, the greatest luck in our lives is to meet Zioxiu. Don't cry. In our family's situation, no news about the child may be the best news. We have lived to this age. Life is rare in 70 years, what else can we look forward to? We just accept our destiny and don't expect them to provide for us until we die." Aunt Su nodded. "You're right, everyone is at peace with his destiny, that is, everyone is at peace with his destiny. Go to sleep, old man. Didn't Au say that he wanted to renovate the house? Spring is here and we can start construction. We have time to be busy." Although Au has enough money from Aiken for the 2 brothers to buy a homestead and build a house, they have to wait until Lao Lu comes back, right? Of course, Lao Lu is the head of the family. The household registration of Lu Jiang's family all followed Lu Jiang. Lu Tianjun joined the army, the Guancheng brothers and Lu Tianzi went to work, and the household registration and grain and oil relations were no longer in Wanglu Brigade. Isn't there only one Lu father left? He was also thinking about building a new house, so he and Zibao returned to his hometown at the end of February. Zibao, who has grown into a teenager, is as popular as ever. Father Lu should be strong, so he first asked Wang Zhenqiu to buy a homestead in front of the Lu family for Guancheng and Guanyu. The price Guanyu paid was 30 yuan more than the Lu family's homestead, a total of 80 yuan, and then contacted Lu Jiang's comrades used tractors to pull a lot of red bricks, cement, sand, floor slabs, and other materials. Jin Ruoka began to design houses and courtyards for them as early as after returning from Guanyu, so that they could be used at any time the homestead price was overlooked and changed from 200 to 80. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1695. There is no need to dig adobe. After the cement, sand, and red bricks are in place, the foundation is laid and the house is built as soon as it is built. Because Lu Zhang and Feng Qingxiu have been away for many years and will not be able to come back in a short time, building two new houses at the same time is too ostentatious, so Lu's father temporarily changed his mind and only built a house for the Guancheng brothers, claiming to the outside world that Guancheng was the leader of the capital. I am a mechanical manufacturing engineer. After my salary increased, I wanted to build a house in my hometown to facilitate my return to my hometown in the future. The Lu family has a large group of elderly people and children. The son of Lu Tianjun, the fourth generation, is about to turn 2 years old. The 3 mud tile houses cannot fit in even if they are packed to death. We have also discussed before that the Lu family has 3 wives. Why don't they build a new house? The important thing is that they have a natural sense of awe for Guancheng, who has worked in the capital for many years. Even if they go out, they will have face, right? The folks at home have some spare money. When they are marrying a daughter-in-law, in addition to troublesome Feng Qingxiu, they will also trouble Guanyu to send letters and money to Guancheng, asking him to help get some rare supplies they need. This is also what they get. The light, the favor should be remembered. The Lu family's popularity has been in business for more than 10 years. So, as soon as I heard that the Lu family was building a new house and it was not very busy since spring had just begun, men, women and children came to help. The layout Jinruoka designed for them was to have 4 main rooms to facilitate the extension of the building in the future, and 3 east and west side rooms. The 4 rooms in the main house require 30,000 bricks. The side rooms cannot be higher than the main house, and it would not look good when built as a bungalow. Therefore, in the design, it was turned into a brick house, requiring a total of 20,000 bricks and 2,000 tiles. Thousands of bricks and tiles, that is, 3 brick houses. Considering the kitchen, toilet, courtyard walls, and gatehouse, Father Lu ordered 60,000 bricks in one go. He originally wanted to buy blue bricks, which were denser and more expensive. Unfortunately, he couldn't buy them, so he had to settle for the next best thing. The best red bricks cost 2 and 8 cents each, so 60,000 yuan is 1,680 yuan. The 1,500 yuan that Guancheng gave Guanyu was not enough. Cement, sand, tiles, floor slabs, wooden beams, doors and windows all needed money. Even if the fathers and villagers said they didn't want wages, they had to give it. He had already spent 200 yuan to buy a homestead, so before Lu's father could pay for it, Jojo decisively sold a gold bar. The Lu family is united and no one cares about money. The rich contribute money, and the powerful contribute. For example, Lu Tianzi can't even think of money, so why should he have no money? Even Guan Yu's salary is just enough to support the couple and Grandma Zhou. Excluding the material fees and homestead fees, there is very little money spent on other aspects. There is great strength in numbers, and the knot was formed in less than half a month. On the day when the roof is tied, that is, when the floor slabs and roof beams are put up, there is only one step away from completion. The floor slabs and roof beams are wrapped with a little bit of inconspicuous red cloth. This is an old custom. I don't dare to blatantly do it. I can only change the red cloth into small and thin strips, so that ordinary people can't find it. Lu's father used the supply book of Cheng Baoqiu and his wife to go to the city in advance and buy a large number of hard candies wrapped in candy wrappers. Worried that they would not be enough, he asked Shen Fiheng to borrow a few kilograms of candy coupons from the neighbors. The hard candies contained unused candy coupons. 2 kilograms of white rabbit toffee and shelled peanuts fried by Miao Fengqin. After the floor slabs and roof beams were raised, candy peanuts were scattered from the roof, and women and children robbed them. Although the elders were embarrassed and stood still, staring at the floorboards and roof beams, they still had the strength to reach out and grab a few pieces of candy from the air and pass them on to their children. When the roof of the house is knotted, the happiest people are the children. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1696. Wang Zhenqiu and Lu's father, who were not far behind in their 70s, stood outside the crowd, their spirits bright and their faces glowing. They have not suffered any harm in these years, they are well fed and clothed, and they have raised two old people with straight backs, no deafness and no blindness. If their eyebrows and hair had not turned gray, at first glance, they would look the same as they did more than 10 years ago. The brick house is better than the adobe house, and the bungalow is more elegant, square, and angular. My three sons were very excited when they saw it. They wanted to build a few bungalows, but even if it didn't work out, they would have to build 3 brick houses. There are separate houses in the east and west. The grandchildren have already reached the age of marriage, and the whole family cannot still live in 3 low and narrow adobe houses, Wang Zhenqiu said. His 3 sons have given him several more grandchildren over the past 10 years. The 3 families together have more than a dozen grandchildren. The eldest son has 5 children, the second son has 6, and the third son has 5. Not to mention getting a wife. If we don't expand the building, there will be no room for footing. Father Lu smiled and said, "Are your sons planning to build their own homes, or are they going to individually approve a piece of homestead land for the next generation to build?" By flipping the lid, you don't have to pay for homesteading, which can save a lot of money. The earth belongs to the collective. Even if Wang Zhenqiu is still the captain and has high moral standing, he cannot show favoritism. Wang Zhenqiu sighed, with their faces facing the lowest and their backs to the sky. They have many children. How much money can they save? It doesn't matter that they want to build a bungalow, but in my opinion, one family can build 3 brick houses and then build a few adobe side houses. It would be great if it comes out. The cost of materials is more than 300. However, what they want is for me to grant their family a piece of homestead land to build a new house. The money for the homestead land will be owed first and will be deducted from the work points at the end of the year. When the time comes, the son will be of marriageable age. They live in a new house and take a wife, while the old and the young still live in the old house. Although Wang Zhenqiu still had some gold, silver, and cash in hand, he did not want to raise his children and grandchildren to get something for nothing, and did not plan to share it with them. He was worried that they would build big bungalows and expand their yards when they had enough money. None of them knew the existence of this gold and silver, and they didn't care about the old man's savings. When it comes to building a house, it's too much to do too much. Without even noticing, Father Lu made plans to flip the house over. Father Lu nodded understandingly. Zibao has 2 pieces of homestead land in his hands. The area is neither big nor small. Because it is located at the east and middle of our production team, Akan and Au want to build their houses near our home. So it's useless. How about I tell Zibao that I'll transfer the 2 pieces of homestead to your 2 sons, and then give it to us when we have money, so that we don't have to owe the brigade. One of the 2 homesteads was given to Zibao by a lonely old man who found the brigade party secretary before he died and left it in black and white to Zibao. The reason was that Zibao spent the last period of his life with him, preventing him from starving and freezing. The other homestead was acquired by Zibao 3 or 4 years ago in exchange for 30 kilograms of wheat, 100 kilograms of dried sweet potatoes and 2 packets of brown sugar. Wang Zhenqiu thought for a moment and discussed with Zibao. Zibao said without hesitation, "If my cousin wants to build a house, just take it. It's empty anyway, and our family has no plans to build a house there." "But uncle, Grandpa, you can't treat me badly. Don't worry, if I give you 80 yuan for a homestead, you will be your two cousins' creditor. Those two homesteads are about the same size as the Guanyu land, and the smaller ones are also limited. Although they are smaller than the total area of the old house and yard of the Lujiang family, the living standards have improved and the prices are more expensive than more than 10 years ago, so priced at 80 in the previous chapter. The price of the Guan family homestead was changed from 200 to 80, which does not affect the plot. In the 1960s and 1970s, it was quite popular in rural areas to exchange grain for private homestead land. My family's old homestead land was exchanged for 30 pounds of wheat. In the late 1980s, when my parents got married, the price of homestead land had soared to 2,000 yuan. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1697. 2 days after the topping was completed, the Lu family's new house was successfully completed. The walls of the bungalow are evenly pasted with a layer of cement on the inside, outside and on the top, polished very smooth, and splashed with water to prevent cracking. The east and west side houses are made of red bricks and blue tiles, and the house has also been paved with cement floors, both inside and outside. It is very neat and clean. Even the courtyard walls, gatehouse, and a small kitchen on the east side of the gatehouse are all made of bricks. It can be called the first in the Wang Tower Brigade. Wang Jiao walked around and around, feeling extremely envious. She turned around and said to Zhang Yuejin, hurry up and save money. Let's try to build a bungalow next year and live there for 7 or 8 years. When Gauden gets a wife, we will too, not a loss. Miao Fengqin stared at her. What are these words? If other families have the conditions, it is almost time to marry a wife. They will build a new house for their son and live in the old house for themselves. It is better for her daughter to build a new house first for herself to live in, and then use the old house to marry her son for a wife. Zhang Yuejin was also envious of the Lu family's new house and courtyard, and he agreed to his wife's proposal without caring about his mother-in-law's glare at his wife. He discussed with his wife enthusiastically, let's build the bungalow first, and postpone the rest. 30,000 a brick costs more than 800 yuan, Xiao, I will definitely save money. We can renovate the old house and save a lot of money without having to buy a homestead. Wang Jiao thought about it for a while. We have more than 400 yuan in hand. If you save hard for a year, you can end up with 200 yuan, which will be 600. I will write to Xiaoxiu later and ask her borrowing 200 yuan, your parents can't afford to spend nothing, right? When your brother built a house of half bricks and half adobe, we paid 200 yuan. You will never pay that 200 yuan. Look at it now, your brothers live in a brick house, and we still live in a shabby thatched house. Yes, my wife understands justice. My parents will definitely not stand by and watch, and my brother will not pretend not to know. Zhang Yuejin bowed his hands and didn't even mention that his parents usually took his 4 children to the old house. Their children live there, and the couple spend most of their time living in a small house assigned to them in the city. Miao Fengqin was too lazy to pay attention to them. Zhang Yuejin's house is now Wang Jiao's talking point. She says one thing and no one says anything else. Zhang Yuejin's parents worked hard and couldn't save much money all year round. The younger son Zhang Guangrong relied on the subsidies from his older son to grow up smoothly. However, he is too honest, and his mouth is stupid. He can't kick a fart with 3 feet. If it weren't for the good life of the Wanglu Brigade, he wouldn't even be able to find a wife. There are always many bachelors in other brigades, but not in our Wanglu Brigade. Unmarried young men are simply famous far and wide. Even so, after the wedding date was set 7 years ago, the woman also put forward several conditions before she was willing to marry. She needed a betrothal gift, a new set of clothes, a new house and a new quilt. It's inconvenient for the boss to live together. Zhang Yuejin's parents wanted to break off the engagement at that time, but Zhang Guangrong refused to marry Feking. In the end, the elder had no choice but to compromise. The old couple prepared a new bed, quilt, and clothes, but the money they had was very limited. The remaining 200 yuan came from Wang Qiao. Even though she was still too lazy to do housework, Zhang Yuejin's father-mother is still very satisfied with this daughter-in-law. They take care of her eldest son's 3 grandchildren and 1 granddaughter, so Wang Jiao doesn't have to worry about them at all. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1698. Zhang Yuejin and his wife are still making plans for next year, and his 3 brothers-in-law have started building houses. Wang Zhenqiu discussed it with his 3 sons. The second son and the youngest son took over 2 pieces of Zibao's homestead. They each wrote an IOU of 80 yuan to Zibao. They would repay the debt when they got the money. The eldest son Wang Dachun, as the eldest brother, Brother Qian Rang, the brigade will approve a homestead, and the money will be deducted from the work points at the end of the year. All 3 of their families built 3 brick houses and 2 mud houses on the east and west sides. The cost was about the same, less than 400 yuan per family. This money is all their savings. After Wang Dachun finished building his new house, he still had some money left over to return to the brigade, but the 2 brothers each owed 30 or 50 yuan each. Fortunately, what they owed was wages, and they were not in a hurry to get it, and were willing to wait until the end of the year to distribute the money. Let's settle the accounts later. Wang Zhenqiu is still here. Unless he is in urgent need of money, no one will come to ask for it. The Wanglu brigade is now getting better and better, building houses one by one. Some people take the initiative, and families with a little savings rush to build new houses before the busy farming season. Those with good conditions build brick and tile houses, and those with poor conditions only build half brick and tile houses. Only a few families with particularly poor conditions built adobe houses. It would not work without building them. The old house cannot accommodate a large family. Zibao, however, was focused on nothing. He was promoted to the 1st grade of junior high school step by step. He was registered in the school and still studied with old men and old ladies. As he grew older and his learning ability increased, he needed to learn more and more knowledge, and the content tended to be profound. These old men and women are already in their twilight years, half lying in coffins, wishing they could give Zibao all their knowledge. In the blink of an eye, spring comes to an end and summer solstice comes, and the entire Wanglu brigade prepares for the summer harvest. Building a new house has come to an end, and Zibao's study has also come to an end. In early June, the temperature in the South China Sea exceeded 30 degrees. Under the high temperature, everyone was sweating profusely. In July, the temperature gets even higher. Feng Qingxiu and other military doctors who were seconded did not receive orders to go back. When they were not at sea, some of them were attending hospitals, and some were responsible for training the newly recruited medical soldiers this year. Feng Qingxiu belonged to the latter. Just back from the sea, Feng Qingxiu quickly boiled water to take a bath, changed out of her military uniform and put on cotton and linen clothes. She couldn't stand the heat, so in May she spent money and industrial coupons to buy a desktop electric fan. The base was made of pure steel and was very heavy. It whirred on the bedside table and made a lot of noise. The washed clothes were hung on the bamboo pole outside the window, and Feng Qingxiu felt sweaty again. I sat on the edge of the bed and blew on the fan for a while when I heard someone knocking on the door. Dr. Feng, you have your phone number downstairs, a child said when he opened the door. Every family building has a telephone in the communication room. For half a year, she has been using this phone to contact her family. As soon as she answered the phone, she heard Lu Zhang said angrily, "Third uncle and third aunt take care of themselves, the child is looking for you, please pay attention." Feng Qingxiu was stunned. How did they get here? It's so far away, and how hot it is to take the train. We went by plane. Lu Jiang looked helpless. Didn't they have a holiday? They were mischievous at home every day and refused to stop for a moment. Their uncle and aunt took them to play in the capital and visit relatives and friends, but who knew they would leave? Lu Shui got on the plane to the southeast military region. I don't know who instigated it. I think it was Er Xiong. It took 3 days for Lu Shui to call me and tell me. Feng Qingxiu was surprised, so, it's time for them to arrive. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1699. People often say that they are relatives across generations. Compared to parents Lu Jiang and Feng Qingxiu, Chen Baoqiu and his wife doted on their children so much that they almost always responded to their requests. If Lu Jiang and Feng Qingxiu hadn't been keeping an eye on her every day, there might have been 1 or 2 playboys in the family. Lu Jiang said bitterly, "They are very cool and they go as they say." He hasn't seen his wife in half a year, and he is full of yearning for her. Okay. I wish I could spread my wings and fly away, but I just want to wait for a while. Feng Qingxiu comforted her with a few words. It's a coincidence that your call came. I just came back from the sea this morning. If you called a day earlier, I probably wouldn't be able to receive your call. They were on the road 2 days earlier. I'm afraid they'd be injured when they got here empty. I called you yesterday, and the person who answered the phone said you were at sea. Lu Jiang suddenly said, "Today is the 4th day after the child boarded the plane and left the capital. I told the elder sister in charge of the phone to wait for you to come back. She asked you to call me right away, didn't she tell you? I just waited for a long time and didn't get your call, so I called you just to give it a try." Feng Qingxiu frowned. "No, you didn't tell me. It's been 2 hours since I came back. I haven't told myself for so long. Has Sister Tao forgotten?" Taking a look at the middle-aged woman sitting in the reception room blowing a fan and mending her clothes with her head down, Feng Qingxiu no longer wanted to pursue the matter. She would have to rely on this phone to communicate with Lu Jiang in the future. It's not too late to know now. I'll go take a look to see if they've arrived. After hanging up the phone, he went back to the room and found a big straw hat to put on. He picked up the big bamboo basket and net bag without forgetting to pick up the big cattail leaf fan. After locking the door, Feng Qingxiu ran to the gate of the base and asked the soldiers responsible for guarding, registration and interrogation. "Is anyone coming to find me?" Feng Qingxiu has been here for half a year and has already made a name for herself. Although she spends most of her time at sea and spends the rest of her time training medical soldiers, when there is an emergency operation and the hospital is short of manpower, the seconded doctors will be invited into the operating room to be the chief surgeon. She spends half a year. 26 surgeries were performed, and 25 of them were successful, 6 of which were major surgeries. In addition, she always walks through the base gate every time she goes to sea, so everyone recognizes her. When she heard everyone say that no one came to see her, Feng Qingxiu suppressed the impatience in her heart and showed them photos of her family, so that the elderly and children would not be turned away when they arrived. "I went to the grocery store to buy groceries. If I can't receive your call, please find someone to guide them to where I live." "Yes, don't worry, we will not neglect your family." Feng Qingxiu arrived late and the weather was hot, so I couldn't buy any pork. Not to mention the non-staple food stores. All the service agencies in the entire camp knew that Feng Qingxiu had a revolutionary partner who was a military commander. Master Li, who sold meat, said, "Dr. Feng, I will leave you a piece of first-class meat tomorrow." "You, how many pounds does it cost?" Feng Qingxiu shook the cattail leaf fan, but couldn't shake the sweat off her face. "I saved 2 kilograms of meat stamps, Please leave me 1 kilogram of first-class meat tomorrow, and 1 kilogram of lean meat cut from the fat pig. In addition, leave me 2 more pig ears and I'll come get them early in the morning. The lean meat from fat pigs is delicious, while the lean meat from lean pigs is very good. She has gained experience now. After ordering the pork she needed for tomorrow, she turned around to buy fish, and ordered a chicken. She also bought a lot of dry goods, fruits, and vegetables. The basket and net bag were filled to the brim, and she held several live fish in her hands. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1700. Everyone was used to it, and secretly said that Feng Qingxiu had a big appetite, which was comparable to that of a strong laborer, because as long as she lived on the island, she would buy a lot of chicken, fish, meat, eggs, fruits and vegetables every day, at least enough for 3 or 4 people a day. However, it seems that I bought twice as much today. Sister-in-law Lei couldn't help but said, Dr. Feng, the weather is so hot. Are you afraid of spoiling it if you buy so much? Can you eat it alone? Feng Qingxiu often buys dry goods, and sister-in-law Lei is the person she knows best. Feng Qingxiu smiled and said, my old people and children came to see me. They will arrive soon. I have to prepare in advance and borrow her house from Dr. Guo to live in. Fruits and vegetables are not afraid of spoiling if they are left for a day or 2. If they don't come today, I will salt the fish and cook it when they come, so there is no need to worry about waste. Upon hearing this, Sister Kui, who was selling fruit opposite sister-in-law Lei, said, bring her here for us to see you some other time. You are so handsome and capable, so your dolls must be good. Okay, they are here, I will take them to buy groceries, and you will see them. Feng Qingxiu left the grocery store with a smile. When she got home, she hung the net bag containing fruits on the wall. She put the packed ingredients into the space to keep them fresh, soaked the dry goods, and simply ate some white porridge with pickled cucumbers. The pickled cucumbers were given by Mrs. Gu. They were crisp, refreshing and very appetizing. She didn't wait for the call from the base gate, and ignored the scorching sunshine at noon. She went out again, preparing to go to the dock to see if any ships were coming. Before that, she went to see Dr. Guo. Dr. Guo had dinner at Gu's house. After hearing what he wanted, he handed her the key directly, whenever you come here, go and stay directly. The 2 guest rooms upstairs are always empty. There are beds and mats, and the sheets and towels are in the cabinet. I'll ask Xiao Man to bring it out to you in the sun. There are pots and pans in the kitchen, and you can pick and eat whatever vegetables Xiao Man grows in the yard. Sister-in-law Gu immediately said, I am the only one in my house. Lao Gu won't come back for 3 days. The 2 guest rooms upstairs are also empty. Sister Xiaoxiu, please let them live in my house. Auntie and the 2 girls have 3 meals a day eat at our place. It was because Dr. Guo's house didn't have a fire that Feng Qingxiu wanted to stay at her house so that her family could cook. Thank you, sister-in-law. Let's stay at my aunt's house for convenience. Dr. Guo is Guo Ming's sister. At Dr. Guo's request, she changed her name to Aunt to appear closer. When Mrs. Gu heard what she said, she didn't force her. Okay, you go and see if they're here first, and I'll clean up the room. Feng Qingxiu thanked her and rushed to the gate anxiously. There was still no sign or news of Cheng Baoqiu, his wife, and their children, so she borrowed a bicycle and went straight to the dock. After walking for about 7 or 8 minutes, a military transport truck came towards us. Feng Qingxiu quickly moved to the side of the road and parked her car. Unexpectedly, the truck suddenly braked and stopped in front of her, bringing with it bursts of dust, which made her cough violently. Who is driving the car? Stopped so suddenly. He must be in such a miserable state now, with his face covered in dust and sweat, that a fairy could turn into a beggar. The door of the passenger seat suddenly opened at this moment, and a calf-like little guy climbed out neatly. As soon as he stood still, he opened his arms and ran towards her. "Mom, Mom, why don't you go home?" Feng Qingxiu took a closer look, and was surprised and happy. Her heart dropped. Two bears.